I came across a recent paper by some Finnish researchers, and they talked about serendipitous social encounters. And being interested in friendship and also friendship at the workplace, I had to look upon that. And that's a qualitative analysis of how chance encounters can turn into professionally valuable experiences of social serendipity. But I won't go so much into that investigation here. I would only ask this question. Now I used to this illustration here. Do those friends have to be so similar? And that actually leads us to the first case, because what I will do here is to present two cases, two kind of case studies. One case of some cognitive scientists looking at friends by scanning their brains and asking, are they similar? So, and then another case, which is a linguistic case from linguistics, a linguist looking at changes in friend talk and how digital humanities may be able to test her hypothesis. So the first case that was communicated to this journal, Nature Communication, with the heading "Similar Neural Responses Predict Friendship." And you have three authors here. Two of them come from the field of social cognitive neuroscience, and then there is an expert in social network analysis. And just to give you an impression of the study, because I cannot go into all details, and also I'm not a social cognitive neuroscientist myself. So the abstract says that, okay, human social networks are overwhelmingly homophilous. Individuals tend to befriend others who are similar to them in terms of a range of physical attributes, age, gender. Do similarities among friends reflect deeper similarities in how we perceive, interpret, and respond to the world? To test whether friendship, and more generally social network proximity, is associated with increased similarity of real-time mental responding, we used functional magnetic resonance imaging to scan subjects' brains to view those responses. Sorry, I have to change my screen here to see what I write. Yeah, to brains during free viewing of naturalistic movies. So here we show evidence for neural homophily. Neural responses when viewing audiovisual movies are exceptionally similar among friends, and that similarity decreases with increasing distance in real-world social networks. So these results suggest that we are exceptionally similar to our friends in how we perceive and respond to the world around us, which has implications for interpersonal influence and attraction. Okay, so what they did was first to make a characterization of a specific, what they call real-world social network. And that was a cohort of first-year graduate students. So they made some questions to them by a survey, asking them to get a picture about how they related to each other. And one such question, that was this one here: consider the people with whom you would like to spend your free time. Since you arrived at the institution, who are classmates you have been with most often for informal social activities, such as going out to lunch, dinner, drinks, films, visiting one another's homes, and so on. So that was the question. And among those who answered, a few of them participated, 42 participated in the brain scan study. So this was how friendship was operationalized here, as if two persons answered or named the other one each other, both of them, it would count as social distance one, that is friendship in this, this way of characterizing the network. And so they map the social distance, that is the smallest number of intermediary mutual social ties required to connect any two individuals in the network. And having done that, those 42 who, said yes to going on with being brain scanned, they were put into a scanner and they were watching about half an hour video clips from YouTube. And here you can see some of the examples, an astronaut's view of the Earth, a Google Glass review, a review of this Google Glass headset. So these were different kinds of movies, both touching upon aesthetic, political, action-oriented kind of questions, very different, but very likely to prove to be something you can debate with some other person about how you feel about that. And they recorded the responses to the visual input here. And after having done so, they divided each of the 42 students' brain into 80 anatomical regions of interest, as you can see here. And for each individual, the average response time series within each region was extracted during the video viewing. And then they started to calculate the correlation between the time series extracted from each pair of corresponding brain regions and computed the degree of similarity, as this figure illustrates here. I hope you can see it. And so they get a long, a huge mass of time series and can begin to calculate the time correlations for each individual brain region in those dyads, like those friend dyads or the dyads of more socially distant persons. So the result of this is shown here very briefly. In the upper part, you see here for the social distance 1, for different sections of the brain, the average dyadic scan response time series similarities. And this is overlaid on a cortical surface model. And you use the warmer colors to indicate a relative high degree of similarity, and blue colors to indicate a low degree of, it means relatively dissimilar responses for that brain region. And then you can calculate the overall weighted average neural similarity, which you see down here. So you have social distance 1, 2, 3, and 4, the highest 4 and above, that is the highest distance. And you clearly see something is going on here. There seems to be a significant difference. That is at least what they conclude. I will not go into all the details here, but just lead you through this relatively brief. So the neural responses of friend pairs were significantly more alike than the responses of non-friend pairs, alike in terms of the calculated inter-subject time series correlations. So in statistical terms, for each 1 unit increase in overall neural similarity, the odds that 2 people were friends increased by 47%. And even when the researchers controlled for demographic, that is non-neural similarities of people in each of those dyad pairs they investigated, it could be like age and gender and nationality, the correlation between the neural response and position in the social network remained. So neural similarity provided additional predictive power above and beyond the similarity in terms of the demographic variables, as seen when the full model was compared with a model that did not include neural similarity. So that seems to be amazing or quite remarkable. And what about what kinds of brain regions this apply for? Is this so for all brain regions? No. Again, they showed this by this kind of color map of the brain regions, where the warmer color indicate a negative regression coefficient, that is the greater neural response similarity was associated with either being friends or being close, at least in this social network, and cooler colors the other way around. And so you can see here that this is seen above, and below you can see a big map of all those 80 different brain regions, some of which actually significantly is having this kind of characteristics that neural similarity is predictive of social distance above and beyond the other measures. So to state that in another way, the brain regions driving the relationship between social distance and overall neural similarity, those brain regions, as they are mentioned here, which is above the significance levels, they are quite broad regions of the ventral and dorsal striatum, and you can go through those Latin names for the brain regions themselves. But to give a more kind of senseful characteristics, one of the researchers said to a science journalist, it was all over the brain, sensory regions, memory, language. You couldn't say, here's the social brain network that's responsible for friendship. It was that friends' brain are remarkably similar across huge swaths of areas. Yet the correlation was especially strong in areas related to sharing perspective taking, shared perspective taking, visual and auditive attention, and affective processing. So friends are literally seeing and hearing the world more similarly than people who are friends of friends and friends of friends of friends. It's coming down to the level of how you're processing sights and sounds. Giving a music video, if you and I find some parts of the melody or some parts of the visual particularly engaging, then we are going to tune our eyes and ears to those parts. The science journalists actually wrote a whole book about friendship and friendship being studied within evolutionary biology, neuroscience, and other natural sciences. It is quoted here. So this, of course, brings us to the open questions, and maybe also questions about epistemic opacity, to use the term that was used yesterday by Maria Martinez Ordaz in her paper. There's the question, of course, about causality. Why is this so? If it is so. So do we become friends with people who respond to the environment similarly, or do we come to respond to the world similarly to our friends? And the researchers admitted that they couldn't say either the one or the other, because of the cross-sectional, one-point character of this research. They couldn't see whether similarity was the cause or the consequence of friendship. So that's one issue, of course. But a more deeper issue may be, okay, now we have found a pattern here using a kind of big data method and a lot of calculations, of course, a lot of statistics. But what kind of knowledge do we get here? And this is about, I think, about epistemic opacity. As another cognitive neuroscientist said, Lieberman, this study is one of only a handful of neural synchrony studies to use machine learning algorithms such that neural synchrony is actually being used to predict something about the people whose brains are synchronized. The only difference being that while other studies predicting experiences and memories, this study by Parkinson and et al. Predicted aspects of some social structure of a larger novel group from the similarity of their neural responses. And so the use, remember that in the title here of the paper, that similar neural responses predict friendship. The question is, of course, predict in what sense? I mean, in the sense they use is statistically predict for this sample of some people who come together in a graduate program. But is it completely clear to us what is being told here? Who is doing the predicting? Is it the researchers, or is it the algorithm trained on the data set? What kind of knowledge is achieved here? I ask the question, can we imagine the possibility of unpacking the classifier algorithm that in this and many similar studies by means of machine learning becomes almost black boxed, and from its structure extract an understandable lesson or some explicit knowledge that would help us as humans not only to classify dyads to social distance categories more or less successfully if we have a good data set and a good machine learning tool. But actually to know in the explanatory sense about the detailed workings of neural homophily, as they call it, and get some sort of deeper understanding of the neurosemiotic mechanisms involved. I think this question is not answered by their study. And an additional question may be the question about representativity, whether those graduate program students are actually telling us something universal about human beings in general. And one reason to be skeptic about that is if you read this book, The Weirdest People in the World, Joseph Henrich, who is also working in some of those nearby areas, he says that, okay, when you are born in a place which is weird in the sense that it is wealthy, educated, industrialized, rich, and a democratic society, your brain is actually wired due to your upbringing in a very particular way, which is not at all universal for all humans. So we should be aware of that. Okay, another case about the use of big data in the human sphere, or to get some kind of idea about friendship also, is this case I found in a linguist called Anna Wierzbicka, who has been working with this notion of friend talk. I mean, she worked on cultural scripts, keywords, and cross-cultural pragmatics, and she has been praised for some of her own work that is spanning across many different disciplines. She's now living in Australia, but in 1997 she published this book, Understanding Cultures Through Their Keywords, English, Russian, Polish, German, and Japanese. And the approach was inspired by anthropology, using special common words of a culture to provide information about some specificities about this culture. And she talked about cultural scripts, and she claimed that regarding friendship, that is actually one such key cultural keyword. And she has also claimed something about the shift in frequency of particular expressions of friendship. So one claim of her is that friendship is a cultural keyword that is partly untranslatable. It means when you look upon those 4 languages here, you can discern actually 12 different non-identical friendship-like concepts that stand out from her analysis. And when you talk about drug in Russian, it doesn't mean exactly the same as friend in modern English, or those Polish terms here, or the Australian term mate. So they are not completely translatable to each other. So this is one finding. And another finding is that in English, you have Old English friend and present English friend. Those 2 terms are also not identical, because she discerned a shift in common meaning of friend from meaning someone who is dear, loved and true, which is closer to the classic Roman conception based on mutual goodwill and affection, into a new meaning where it is someone who is being enjoyable and close. That's a shift from habitual affectionate thought to occasional pleasurable company. That is her claim. So she thinks that the meaning of the word friend somehow has weakened in modern English Anglo societies. So so to achieve the same force, it is now necessary to use the expression close friend. Something of the old value of the word friend has survived in the derived noun friendship, whereas in the older usage, friends were related to one another by a friendship. In the current usage, one can have many more friends than friendships, and only close friends can now be said to be linked like friendship. So that is, of course, it is particularly striking that the number of friends that a person can be expected to have has increased over time in all major Anglo societies. And I mean, this is written at a time that was 98. I think it was a time before Facebook also changed the meaning in the same direction of friendship. So can we test her hypothesis here about the shifting sense of French in English? She actually states some more particular hypothesis that the expression "my friend" has been decreasing, "friend of mine" has been increasing, "close friend" has been increasing also. And I think it's interesting to consider to use the Google Ngram viewer to make a kind of test. I don't know whether you all know what Google Ngram viewer is, but you can go to the site itself and see this example here introducing it. It's actually it's based upon several corpuses of books that is scanned as Google Books. So you have a corpus extending from about 1500 to 2019. So this is one of the corpuses of books scanned, and then you can actually find, sorry, the frequency of a particular ngram changing over time here. From here, it is from 1950 to 2015, kindergarten, childcare, and nursery school, which is explained here. I won't go into detail, but I couldn't help trying out Serendipity actually, and it appears to have increased a lot since about 1940 or something. That's when we use this English corpus, which is a mixture of different sources. So that is, of course, that's quite fascinating. Yeah. And but then we can ask ourselves, okay, what if we use another corpus? They have a corpus of English fiction actually, and there you see quite a different pattern. This is the general corpus. This is the fiction corpus. There seems to be a kind of peak here around 1964. Why is this? And actually, you can use this Ngram viewer in Google actually also to search books. So when you look at this particular phase here, you are led to a book called Serendipity, written by James Wallace Hamilton. Maybe some of you know it. He was not a scientist, he was a preacher. And he wrote about subjects like Christian life and Christian history and so on. So, well, that's maybe an example of a serendipitous finding here. But of course, you should take care how to use it, because as said here by some of its critics, a central and if subtle and deceptive feature of the Google book corpus is that it is a reflection of a library in which only one of each book is available. And it would be nice to have a kind of popularity filter incorporated, but that would be very difficult for Google, extremely difficult to undertaking to make that a part of this this tool here. Other things you should take care about is a thing like alternative spellings for horsepower and horsepower. But still, I mean, you can see some interesting trends here, and maybe even a trend regarding the shift in the spelling of this concept. If it is referring to a single concept, that's of course questionable also. You can also incorporate other words like water power and see how similar patterns emerge. So you can use this in a lot of instances for trying to get a grip on some overall trends as they are reflected in books. For instance, the word influenza or the ngram influenza has changed a lot. But unfortunately, you cannot go up to the present, to the contemporary pandemic, but you can see that this spike here in influenza is actually the same spike as the expression Spanish influenza, which was used by the previous pandemic, 1918 to 20 of Spanish flu. So it appears that this tool actually can give you access to a lot of patterns about trends, not only in language, but also what we use language to talk about. And that's, of course, something going on in our culture. I tried another search comparing brother, sister, and brothers, sisters in plural, and also found a remarkable different different percentage of the use overall from over the whole period. And I think this is also something unexpected here. So what does ngrams say about friends? And the first thing is you can hypothesize a general decline in the use of the word compared to the use of similar words. You can see an increasing interest in gender from 1970 and on. But of course, we should ask ourselves what we are actually looking at here. Are we confusing social-linguistic shift in language use with socio-cultural shift in the prevalence of friendship? That is, of course, a very serious problem here. But when you look upon those two expressions, close friends and best friends, and also take them in singular, and see the overall trends, then there seems to be actually something to learn here compared to what Via-Bigga had said. Here you have the plural forms, and I put in also other combinations like intimate friends that also has decreased in use, it appears. So you can use this tool, and that's what I call playing around with digital humanities. And you can see, for instance, also this gendered comparison here. She is my best friend. He is my best friend. You can use the tool to ask why are there those differences, and also regarding the expression about close friendship. So testing Via-Bigga, she had this idea that those expressions here are becoming obsolete, almost obsolete. And that seems actually to be the case, that sweet friends, loving friends, and dearest friends, there has been a general trend not to see a particular increase in the expression of these terms. In present-day English, Via-Bigga said, one would normally say he's a friend of mine rather than he is my friend. And that also may be the case, but actually it seems to be falsified by using this tool here, because still you see at least an increase now in this expression for some reason, which may be difficult to explain. And I think I better delimit my time here to skip this one, and perhaps also this one, but one single one I will bring to you here. Via-Bigga is saying the general trend of these changes is aptly illustrated by the emergence of the expression close friends, which, though difficult to date, is definitely modern. And that seems actually to be the case here. Also, if you put it in plural and compare it to true friend. So coming to a kind of conclusion, I would say that using the ngram viewer, you can at least use it in two ways. You can use it in the explorative way and discover patterns and try to explain them. And you may even test some hypotheses previously given about specific changes in language or in culture. But you should, of course, be aware that using Google ngram viewer is loaded with pitfalls, because this big language corpus is a mismatch of fiction and non-fiction, reports, proceedings, and so on. We actually need cleaner copy. And the scientific publication, they have taken up much more of the corpus recently. So it gives a kind of skewed view. And it also doesn't reflect what people are talking about so much as it reflects what people are publishing about, at least those people who can afford to publish something. And also, actually, you will find a lot of errors in the metadata, which is gathered and produced automatically. So this process could be much more error-prone tested. So I would like to thank for your attention those two expressions, you cannot put all the expressions in the ngram viewer because it's limited up to number of 5 words you can combine to a pentagram. So you have to decompose it a bit. Birds of a feather flock together, and friends in need. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Yeah. So thank you very much for your attention.